Yo, what's going on, guys? And today we'll be doing my off-season prediction for the Toronto Raptors. Yes, we've been waiting to do this one due to the fact that they haven't gotten their coach yet. But at this point, it's became clear they're more than likely going to hire Adrian Griffin. And that's because he's been with the organization for, over 5 years now. And former player, seems like well liked within it, and Nick Nurse was in-house, and I think now they're going to pivot, and after missing out on Ime Udoka, they're going to go in-house and get Adrian Griffin. That's my first prediction right here as their new head coach. But let's do our off-season predictions. Let's talk about what this team needs to do to prepare itself to fix it. And I've talked about this before. You got the big decision right here is you're either committing to building around Scotty Barnes, and you have faith that Scotty Barnes is supposed to become the player that we thought he was, which he was hyped. I didn't necessarily believe this, but he was hyped as a guy that was supposed to be like a Draymond Green-esque was the best way to say it, and with a better offensive game potential. For me, I think that was always going to be a oversell. I still think he's a good player. Now the decision is he a franchise cornerstone that makes a difference, in terms of, is he a number one option, like either scoring or even facilitating? Is he a guy that needs to be given the Giannis approach where he needs to be the point guard? All right, because look at this. His swing skill is shooting. If Barnes starts to make his shots, he's going to be something that's an all-star, maybe even an all-NBA player because of his length, defensive upside, and passing ability. There are very few players in the NBA who are this big, this fluid, and this long, and consistently play as hard as Barnes does with an infectious energy. He's a guy whose game is very, very high in terms of feel, and he has a high floor for a non-shooting player, but he needs to become a better shooter, all right, as teams just flat won't, are going to continue to flat out not guard him tightly, which will condense the driving spaces and for him and the rolling bigs and cut off passing angles. And if he gets the shooting sorted out, the upside is so high. And I feel confident, okay, with that being said. And this past year, Scotty, I know people are going to be like, well, this past year, he shot 28% from three and his stats were down, all right? Look, you got to make a decision. Do you build around Scotty and believe he's the franchise cornerstone, or do you think he's a second or third option on a contending team and you want to keep Pascal and stuff like that? Regardless, I think you keep Pascal, but I think the other question is for OG Anunoby, Gary Trent, who I think you need to keep, and Fred VanVleet. Let me hear your thoughts down below in the comment section, and let's get into this. They went 41-41. They right now, pre-draft lottery, they have the 13th pick, and with the 13th pick, I've said they should draft, depending on who's available, either obviously if Anthony Black's available, take Anthony Black. If Kassan Wallace is available, you should take him. Another guy, Nick Smith, or I like a bit better than Nick Smith, Keontae George is someone I really like. And of course, I think finally a great option for them would be, if all those guys I just mentioned aren't there, if they're not interested, if one of the good shooters like Jordan Hawkins, Grady Dick, all right, Jet Howard, if one of those guys, they do need shooting, so I think that would help them. Fred VanVleet has a player option, he'll probably decline that. Gary Trent as well has a player option, he'll probably decline that. I say if you had to choose between VanVleet or Trent, I say pay Trent, he's younger, but maybe that they won't. Otto Porter is accepting his player option, and he's going to remain. Jakob Poeltl's unrestricted. He'll be back. Will Barton's gone. Jeff Downs are restricted. So is Ron Harper and Delano Banton. I believe they'll all be back unless someone overpays for them. And look, this roster, they have to make decisions. They already got rid of Nick Nurse, and we've talked about that. They have to make decisions on top 6 players outside of Scotty Barnes. Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent, they're free agents, and they'll join Poeltl. And Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby are extension eligible and will become free agents next year. If Toronto keeps all 5 players and extend Barnes next offseason, total salaries would exceed $170 million in 2025-26. The lineup of Van Vliet, Barnes, Anunoby, Siakam, and Poeltl averaged 18.8 minutes together and outscored opponents by 63 points. Now, if you include the player option of Van Vliet, Trent, Otto Porter Jr., and the first-round pick, the Raptors enter the offseason with $150 million committed next year and some $12 million below the tax threshold. Van Vliet has until June 15th opt out. Porter has already done his thing, and Trent has June 29th. And we know if all 3 players return, and as well as Poeltl, they'll be a tax team in 23-24. They have some flexibility as Thaddeus Young's $8 million is non-guaranteed and Joe Wieskamp is 1.9, while they both become guaranteed on June 30th. If they really want to commit to that, you could see that be waived because it would create like $10 million in cap space. But the Raptors are still technically at the cap because if they even don't keep Van Vliet and Trent, they have a $17.8 million free agent hold on Poeltl. He'll probably cost probably that much. And obviously, besides finding a new head coach, which I think will be Adrian Griffin, you've heard it here first, it's Fred VanVleet. You got to make a decision. Okay, they tabled discussions on a 4-year, $114 million extension that would pay him $25.5 million, which was $10 million less than Jalen Brunson made last year. And VanVleet has averaged the second most minutes in the league over the past 3 seasons, only behind Siakam, and leads the NBA in miles covered per game of the 3 seasons, according to Second Spectrum. Considering that Toronto sent a lightly protected 24 first-round pick to acquire him, Poeltl's a priority of this offseason, and his contract will be between Jusuf Nurkic's $15 million per year and Jared Allen's $20 million a year. So again, 17 something. Now, Anunoby is eligible for a 4-year, $116 million extension that would start at 26.1, replacing his $19.2 million player option. And Anunoby averaged 17.3 points, 54% from the field, and 44% from 3. They could trade him in a signing trade, kind of like extended trade, I believe it is, or just trade him and a team can extend him themselves. And they want 3 first-round picks, I think, for Anunoby. And Siakam's eligible for a 4-year, $189 million extension. And if he earns all NBA honors this season, he will become Supermax eligible. And the extension would increase to 5 years and an extra $100 million to 5-year, $289. And with that being said, Siakam, supposedly the starting price to open the conversations 3 first, but they want 4 first and like good players. So, you know, the Raptors will send San Antonio a top 6 protected first in 2024, 25, or 26. They're allowed to trade their 23 first starting the night of the draft. Earliest future first they can trade is 2 years after the conditions to San Antonio have been met. They have 2 second-round picks available for trade. And it's a murky situation, but I feel like if you go out into free agency and you rework this bench, you know, guys like that they used to have, Yuta Watanabe, all right. I'm not even kidding. I think Yuta Watanabe is one of those guys that you think I'm joking right here, but I think Dylan Brooks is a guy that, and I know people think are like, you're kidding. I'm like, no, like these are people that can help. Because they're not going to be out here being able to go willy-nilly with the money and stuff. No, they're not going to have that ability. Obviously, they're going to try to bring back Jakob Poeltl. They're not going to be out here going for Cam Johnson, you know, or Harrison Barnes. You know, they're going to try to keep Gary Trent. And, you know, they should be looking at, I mean, Christian Wood, I know he's not good defensively, but he kind of gives you an idea. But if he could bring Josh Hart, who's been fantastic, he won't put up, you know, the stats, but he's an impactful player, tough defender, one of the best rebounding guards, decent spot-up shooter from 3, but he'll probably stay in New York. Other guy, PJ Washington and Bruce Brown. These are all guys that they should look at. And those might be still too expensive. Kelly Oubre, KJ Martin, Dante DiVincenzo, Trey Jones, like all of these guys, maybe they're too expensive. And I don't know what to expect from Jay Crowder, but I really like the idea of a guy like Josh Richardson. You could probably get him really cheap and close to the veteran minimum, who's a good defensive wing who can guard guards and wings thanks to his foot speed and length, able to knock down shots from 3 and off the dribble. And he should be pretty cheap. I think Josh Richardson's definitely someone to look at, as well as Torrey Craig. These are like legit guys that they should be looking at. And I think another one is Jeff Green. If he becomes available, just get some guys who are healthy. I mean, even the idea of like Hamidou Diallo, I think going younger would help. Dario Saric would be a good, versatile. I know he's not a great defensive guy, but the idea is still there. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. We're on the way to 20,000. Like, comment, and subscribe. Peace out.